been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I have a bit of an obsession with a silly little tower defense mobile game called Arknights, with one of my favorite things about it being its art and character designs. The art isn't just incredibly good, it also has a very distinctive and unique style that in this video I will be trying to emulate by making my own Arknights character. Now, the first thing I had to do when creating my character was come up with her lore, which I boiled down to a few key points: race, nation, occupation, and arts. I wanted to base her off of my current PNG tuber persona as well. Currently, my persona's backstory is that she is an unemployed loser who became a ghost after being hit by a train and is now using her afterlife to fulfill the dream she couldn't when she was alive. I wanted to incorporate as much of my current lore into my Arknights persona as possible, so I sat down for a moment, thought about what the closest thing we had to ghost was in Arknights lore, and settled on the revenants from the Kasdelian furnace. With this, I immediately checked 3 of my boxes. She would be a Sarkaz, specifically a Jawl, because I felt their illusion arts would be the best suited for her, and she would be a revenant who escaped from the Kasdelian furnace during the events of Kasdelian Rescue and somehow managed to evade capture by Nymph and escape Kasdel. She then wandered around Terra until she stumbled across Rhodes Island, where she now uses her arts to convince people that she is, in fact, a licensed psychologist. Now that Arknights Cloudy, let's call her A Cloudy's lore, has been established, it was time to start coming up with a design. The first thing I had to start with was giving her a big-ass jacket, because I kid you not, pretty much 9/10 of the Arknights cast has a jacket or 2 in their design, and about half of those jackets are ludicrously oversized, so this detail was simply not optional. The jacket and outfit as a whole also needed to incorporate numerous random belts, buttons, buckles, gizmos, and gabs, because this is another distinguishing feature of the Arknights aesthetic TM. For the rest of the outfit, I kept it simple: button-down shirt, leggings, and a lace-up skirt. I used the same lacy frills and bows that I have in my original design to make the design feel girly and cutesy, but toned it down a lot in the interest of the Arknights aesthetic TM, which is very sci-fi, grim, dark, not the best place for pastel frilly clothing. Another thing to note about my PNG tuber avatar that was important for me to incorporate in this design was that she does not have hands or feet, which most definitely has nothing to do with the fact I avoid drawing hands and feet at all costs, and most certainly has everything to do with creating a more ghostly effect, because as we know, ghosts are often missing various limbs. So naturally, I had to incorporate this incredibly crucial piece of lore into my Arknights soda. It was pretty easy to cover up the hands with oversized jacket sleeves, but the feet posed a harder challenge. I went through a few leg warmer concept ideas before ultimately deciding on bell-bottom adjacent pants. I do think they look a little bit ridiculous, but that being said, ridiculous and impractical outfit choices are a staple of the Arknights aesthetic TM, and I also felt that the bell bottoms helped to balance out the design, and as before I added them, I do think it was a bit too top heavy. For racial traits, that was a little bit tricky because literally the only reference I had was Nymph. The traits are pretty simple. She has curved horns and a tail, the 2 characteristics of Sarkaz, specifically Jawls. I also use Nymph as a huge reference, as Nymph is one of the few Kasdelian characters who has a cutesy appearance. So you can thank her for the leggings, the stitching on the jacket, the corset on the skirt, and a couple of other small details. Now, my name is Cloudy, so of course this character had to have arts based on mist. So I incorporated these aspects into her design through the hair. I made it extremely wispy, and one of the techniques I used for this was sort of disconnecting the line art towards the ends of the hair, which was a technique I never tried before, but I think it turned out pretty well. I also added a few wisps of hair mist floating around to really sell the effect. I did not draw it in the interest of time, but my concept for her weapon was that she would use an arts unit with a diffuser attached to it, kind of like the plasma orb Golden Glow has on top of her staff. She would use this diffuser to spread mist throughout the area around her, which she would then use to cast her arts. I attached a mirror to her belt for this reason as well. They're often associated with illusion, so I thought it would be a nice touch. I also gave her a notebook and pen in her pocket, which I like to think she carries around just to make herself herself seem more professional and not for any actual legitimate reason. You may also notice that she's wearing quite a few bandages as well. The original intention was to make her seem banged and scraped up to sell the fact that she has already died and did so in a presumably violent way, but I think I should have added a couple of rips and tears in her clothing and maybe even a couple of blood spatters just to sell the effect a bit more. Now, a huge part of any character design are the eyes. After all, they do say the eyes are the window to the soul, and I wanted this window to be absolutely empty. In the interest of making Cloudy look completely dead inside, I removed her pupils to give her a more blank expression. I also wanted her eyes to be extremely bright and hazy to the point where they were almost glowing, so I used an almost white color to color the bottoms of her irises. When it came to coloring, I went for a more desaturated version of my original color palette. Arknights color palettes tend to be very desaturated and consist of a lot of neutral colors. So for my color palette, I use colors such as pale gray, dark blue, dark gray, light blue, blue-gray, black, and a little bit more gray just for good measure. Another thing I noticed about the way Arknights designs are colored is the way in which they are shaded. There tends to be a lot of contrast between the highlights and the shadows, with straight up black and white being used in a few cases. Because of this, I tried to make my shading a lot more intense than it usually is. And I don't think it has quite the same level of intensity as some Arknights artwork, but it's still definitely much darker than it usually would have been, so I'm still proud of myself for trying something new. Arknights art also has a very streaky, hand-painted feel to it, and to achieve this, I tried to use a nice mix of blended and unblended shading, in the same way paint can blend together smoothly in some areas of a canvas and remain streaky and textured in others. And here she is, the finished product. I'm overall pretty happy with the way it turned out. I think my absolute favorite part of this design is definitely the hair. I love its shape and how well the shading turned out on it, but I also do like the way I drew and shaded the skirt and the tail. I do think the overall design could have used a few more details to make it feel more complete, as well as to make it look more Arknights-y, as Arknights character designs are known for being hugely detailed. And I also think I could have improved when it came to shading the jacket and the shirt, or really just shading fabric in general is a pain for me. But what do you guys think? Do you think Cloudy looks like an Arknights character? And if so, would you pull for her? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe because I did genuinely put a huge amount of effort into this video. And also let me know if you'd like to see more art-related videos because this is, as you can probably tell, something I am hugely passionate about, and I had a lot of fun making this. That's all for now. Cloudy out.